We went on this response to serve, but I think leaving, we felt served by just the other leaders there, by the homeowners, and just by each other. And so going in, there were some nerves, obviously, but looking back, it was a blessing to me.
Welcome back to another episode of On the Ground with Samaritan's Purse, where we take you to the front lines and behind the scenes of our work around the world. The voice you just heard was Abby. She's one of our 2024 summer interns who recently served with U.S. Disaster Relief in Arkansas. You may not be aware, but there are so many needs around the country right now. There have been so many natural disasters, and Samaritan's Purse is responding in the wake of tornadoes, floods, and wildfires all around the country. And today, I want to encourage you to come out and serve with us. You may not know, but anyone over the age of 14 can serve with USDR. And it doesn't matter what your skill set is or if you have experience with disaster relief. Samaritan's Purse just needs your availability. If you're willing to work hard and show God's love, we can teach you the rest, and we supply all the tools and setup that you need. Serving with U.S. Disaster Relief, it's a great opportunity for all ages to step out. It gives you the opportunity to be bold with your faith and share the gospel of Jesus Christ, both in word and deed, to people who are at their lowest. I sat down with Bruce Poss, who is the Incident Response Manager with North American Ministries, and he has served for over a decade. And he knows that it's more than just helping people clean up their yards or tarp a roof.
It's important for us to sit and listen to their story, to hear them well, and to just to let them know that in the midst of the storm, God's right there with them, and that He understands their grief that they're going through. And I think a lot of times in disasters, that grief, people try to push off that grief because they think, well, I have my health, I'm still alive.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't lose any loved ones, but I shouldn't grieve over this home that I've lost. And so they're trying to deal with that, the conflict that they go through in that. But they are grieving because that's the place that has a lot of memories for them. I think that's why it's important for us to hear them and to just to spend that time with them. We're going to get the work done, but the most important thing is for somebody to listen to that homeowner.
It's awful, and I hate that all of these natural disasters happen, but they give us an opportunity to have that ministry of presence and to share the gospel, and that our home is not here on earth at all.
Right.
So I know all of our projects with Samaritan's Purse, all of them, they're very reliant on the Lord. I mean, we can't do anything we do without His guidance, without His activity. But I feel like North American Ministries is very dependent on volunteers. You need volunteers. We need people to help respond in these areas. What is it like to work in a ministry that is so dependent on the Lord's provision? And how do you see Him provide the people and the contacts and the connections that you need in every disaster?
God is faithful, always faithful. And He has allowed us to, with our site leadership team, really to build a network of men and women who show up time and time again. And it's one of those things that that God's going to provide that they're going to show up because they always do. They did. It's kind of like God's faithfulness. God was faithful in this. I know He's going to be faithful here. I think of Jim, one of our volunteers that was in Tallahassee with us. Jim loves to volunteer. He'll go for a week at this site, and then we may have another site still open, and he'll go to that site. And so it's just that calling that God's placed on them. And to me, the volunteers are the lifeblood of our response. It's just it's an encouragement to me, as an encouragement to all of our staff, that volunteer who will be inconvenienced, put aside their personal needs and wants, and out of a sense of calling to show up at a disaster and love that community through their difficult times.
Mm-hmm. In this episode, we want to especially, I know, all volunteers, we appreciate, whatever age they are, whatever ability they have. It's not about your ability, but your availability, as you mentioned. But today we want to talk about our young volunteers. I think especially in the summer, a lot of colleges send up kids. I think sometimes people think I'm young, I'm inexperienced, I don't know what I'm doing. I have nothing to offer. You need people that are older and skilled and have a craft. But will you tell me about, first of all, just God can use anyone. And sometimes it is just ministry of presence, just sitting with a homeowner.
Right.
You don't need skills or, athleticism or even skill to do that. But tell me what it's like to have youth come join your teams.
Well, this is an important topic to me because I spent 22 years in youth ministry. And one of the things that we saw in ministry was exposure to missions was so important for our young people. One, there are Christians all over the world. There are needs all over the world, and the church is not confined to our environment, where we are, and so it's vital that we at Samaritan's Purse continue to give opportunity for young people. I think I've seen several times where volunteers that have been coming out many, many times for years, and their children become 14. And we've had them where they spent their 14th birthday at one of our sites because their parents had instilled in them the importance of serving. That's Christ served. He met needs and shared the gospel, and so that's a model that we as parents should want to follow. And then you mentioned college students, and that's been vital. I was fortunate to be the program manager for our response in South Carolina when we first delved into having students, college students, come out. We had a group from Liberty University that came and had 40 of them. It was just a tremendous experience because we had the older adults talking about how wonderful it was and how their misconceptions of students were just put to the side because they saw the students with a passion for serving, a passion for the gospel, and so that was a win. And then to hear the students speaking about the respect that they receive from and the mentoring that they receive from older adults. Some of these college students didn't have a parent that maybe instilled in them a work ethic like that or missions. And so they were mentored by some very wise older adults. And so that it's a great cycle. It's a great thing to see older and younger folks working together with a common goal. So.
I know no better way to pass the baton than to physically hand in hand, do it together. It's one thing to tell someone or, teach them on paper what's to come, but to show them is totally different. I love that Bruce has seen volunteers, both young and old, serve together. And now I want to introduce you to one of our young volunteers, Abby. As I mentioned at the beginning, she's one of our interns this summer with Samaritan's Purse. And during the first full week of her internship, Abby and some fellow interns went to Benton County, Arkansas, to help homeowners after deadly tornadoes. I had the chance to hear from Abby about her unique experience and what it was like for her.
It was an amazing way to start the internship. The way I like to describe it is it was one of the most physically taxing weeks, but also one of the most spiritually filling weeks. Just being around so many like-minded believers and then just ministering to the families in Rogers. So I know all the interns were really thankful and came back with full hearts and tired bodies, but full hearts.
I kind of want to encourage people about service because I think some think, I don't know how to run a chainsaw. I don't know how to do things. I would offer nothing to the team. What would you say to people that maybe feel inexperienced or too young to serve? What did it do for your faith? And how did you even see the team respond to so many of you helping?
Yeah. I had absolutely no experience in home repair. I had never used a chainsaw. I had never cut down trees before. And so a lot of us showed up with no experience. But what's so unique about the Samaritan's Purse team is that the leaders there have such a heart for service and for ministry. And so coming under them and then serving alongside of them was such a blessing because they made sure that you didn't feel like you weren't adding value. And then once we got out onto the actual sites, it was all hands on deck and everybody was playing a role. And so going in, there were some nerves, obviously, but looking back, it was a blessing to me.
I know. So I just wanted to hear, your perspective, because I think so many are afraid. Either they feel unqualified or I don't have the time, but what I'm hearing as people come home, I mean, it blessed them. And I think God can use even hard, depleting, like you said, it was exhausting. But sometimes when we do things that empty us physically, that's when the Lord fills us spiritually. Right. So I just want to encourage people that, it will do more for you than you can even ask or imagine. Can you introduce us to homeowners or tell us? Because I think that's the other thing. I mean, yes, you're working, but it's also a ministry of presence. Can you tell me what it was like to talk to homeowners?
Sure.
I know some of my friends say it's so humbling when people at the lowest part of their lives let you in.
Yes.
And so tell me about, I guess, that experience of just listening and sitting with people in their pain.
Yeah. So our team leads prepared us going to these disaster sites saying that our priority is the person. Our priority is the homeowner. Yes, we want to get these trees and these branches taken to the curb, but if you have the opportunity to speak to a homeowner, take it. The conversations I did have were incredible. One woman that comes to mind, her husband's bedridden and has dementia, and so he was inside, and she said he hadn't slept for a week because he was still in fear of the tornado, and she's a follower of Christ, so it was really cool to make that connection with her. But she was out there hauling leaves with us, hauling trees, and she was just such an encouragement. The tree that had fallen over, it was uprooted and in the middle of her yard, crushed a car, it crushed her shed. She told us that, that tree, it was my favorite tree for 24 years. But she said, now it's going to provide me firewood. And that was oh my goodness, like in the middle of a storm, just her faith was so apparent where she was able to look at the bright side of things. But then sometimes we would meet people who were a little bit more distraught. And there's one man from Vietnam who we found out that he had an accident, fallen off a ladder, and so he couldn't walk very well. And so we were able to minister to him, and he came to Christ. And so you saw both extreme ends of the spectrum of those who love the Lord, and this was just a testament of him protecting their family, and then the other end of people who had never met the Lord, and the Lord used this as an opportunity for them to meet him.
I love these stories and what it was like for Abby and her friends to come alongside homeowners. If you come and serve with us, you will wear one of our orange shirts. People often call it the Army of Orange, coming to serve people. And putting on that shirt, it helps conversations get started in the community.
What I didn't realize is that that shirt represents help to a lot of people. And so something else that surprised me was walking into gas stations to pick up a snack or going to the Walmart to pick up a snack. People would stop us and people would say, hey, you're with Samaritan's Purse. Thank you for coming to serve our community. And there was even one time that I opened up a conversation with a man in a gas station named Les. And we talked about the Good Samaritan and he had questions about that. And then it ended up with me just praying for him in this gas station just because I was wearing this orange shirt. And so that was something that was really cool as well, was just representing the organization in a bright orange t-shirt and the doors that the Lord opened because of that.
How has serving and getting to share your hope and pray with somebody in the gas station, how has that changed even your everyday coming home?
I think how it changed my faith going forward is when I do go places, just be observant of those who might need to have a conversation, because a lot of the conversations that started were just people that wanted to share, had something to say, and needed somebody to listen. And again, the Lord orchestrates these divine interactions, and the Lord's going to use it. So if you're looking for it, if you're observant and expecting that the Lord's going to move, he will.
I think God uses our volunteers' hard work and sacrifice as a platform for sharing God's love. And I'm so grateful that Abby was able to talk and pray with Les and tell him the gospel of Jesus Christ. And now Abby is taking what she learned and implementing it in her life back home. Bruce talked more about these orange shirts opening doors.
On those deployments and wearing the shirt and the community recognizing it may not have been that particular person that was at that person's house, but they remember that Samaritan's Purse was at that house. And then the boldness that we have with sharing the gospel, we have to continue to be bold. And so it challenges, and we kind of feed off of each other out there. And someone maybe who's never shared the gospel, never presented a Bible or talked about the importance of Scripture, or they haven't had those opportunities every day that they're seeing people do that, and then they have that opportunity to do that, and so I think it is a growth in their spiritual walk. It gives them some boldness when they go back home.
Boldness in sharing gospel is important. I was challenged and encouraged at what I heard from our young volunteers and how we need to put this into action every day. Caleb Strickland talked more about this on his recent trip as he served in Tallahassee with his mom, Melissa. And it made an impact on his young faith. Caleb is just 16 years old, but he shared his own testimony with grace and wisdom.
I encountered 5 different homeowners. Now, every single person has their own unique story to tell. And I always love learning about new people. Of course, I live, again, in the Appalachian Mountains. And I'm used to Appalachian people, and it's interesting to see Tallahassee people, or even Floridian people, who live in such a unique environment and unique living situations. The second homeowner, his name was Ronnie, and he was a homeowner that I had a very deep conversation with. Ronnie, he was a diabetic, and at the time that we were there, his wife was in the hospital, and he wasn't really talking with his mom all that much. One of his sons had schizophrenia and died. He implied it was by suicide. Everything bad was happening, and this storm was sort of the icing on the cake, really. And, I'm 16. I've never really had the full blunt of life's tragedies before. But my father has multiple sclerosis. And that was really the biggest tragedy in my life, sort of seeing that, my father figure and, the man in my life, degrade health-wise and even mentally-wise because of the pain. And, but through it all, he always had his trust in God and always was attempting to be a role model to me. And what I told Ronnie was that basically his other son and his wife are still with him and they're still watching him. That it sometimes, even happens to me sometimes, it may seem like what you're going through is worthless, that it's meaningless, that why should I continue on doing this really difficult thing, even life in general, if it's not going to pan out in the end? Well, a lot of times, our resilience helps inspire people in ways that we don't know. My father is that to me, and tragedy really helps make you a better person as well. It makes the good things in life better, and really, tragedy is a gift in and of itself that God gives you, that He allows you to have an obstacle that you need to overcome and that you allow others to be inspired by. My dad, having MS is one of the worst tragedies you can have in your life. It's something you can't change, you can't prevent it, and you know it's going to slowly destroy your body over time. And it's sort of, to me, a bit of a paradox in my mind that a man who is in such pain and in such sorrow is able to give me such happiness to me. But really, the tragedy doesn't really define my father. It is sort of something that helps test him. My dad is a very deeply, deeply faithful man. And really, I would not be as faithful as a Christian without my father. Every day, my father reads the Bible, he sits down, and of course, I see that, and I'm like, wow, I can do the same thing. I can read the Bible, I can pray to God, and I'd find comfort in him. That he's always with me through every single step of the burning coals that essentially life can be sometimes. And when I told Ronnie that, he was way more open afterwards. And he kept repeating over and over and over again, nobody's ever done this before me before. And eventually, at the end of every single operation that we do, we give the homeowner a Bible. And when we gave him that Bible, Ronnie had tears in his, he tried to hide them, obviously, but he was clearly deeply moved. And at the end of it, I believe that a true Christian was made that day.
So tell me what it was like, because I know people say it's an honor to put on that shirt, Samaritan's Purse, with a cross. I mean, it gives you an opportunity that we're not usually in daily life. We can and should share our faith at home, but it's not as easy. It's not as natural. So what was it like to be able to share the gospel?
Well, it was a very big honor to be able to do that. Really, the best way to share the good news is to just help people. And like with Ronnie, for instance, nobody had ever done anything like that for him before. Our group leader told him that we are the hands and feet of Jesus. And that really does ring true. We are showing them the good of God here on earth, and they know it's God because we tell them that it is God. I didn't see it as like myself helping them. I saw myself as a part of a bigger operation run by God to help these people.
Caleb's story is an example of how we don't always need to travel to another country to do mission work or share the gospel. In our own country, people in our backyard need to hear the hope of the gospel. And when Ronnie was walking through the deepest valley of his life, he needed encouragement. And Caleb was able to show that the Lord had not forgotten him. And in this episode, I want to convey the importance of our volunteers, but especially our youth. I think sometimes people are timid, or they think they have nothing to offer, or they don't have experience, and that, young people aren't equipped to contribute. But that's not true. And here, Bruce talks about this and the importance of our youth.
We just need somebody's availability, and then they can allow God to move them, and they'll find out that they have skills that they maybe didn't know they had. When I was a program manager, I would say, if everybody on that job site is working, somebody's running a saw, raking the leaves, running a skid steer. If you're the skid steer operator and you're the only one that can operate that piece of equipment, and you see that homeowner by themselves, shut the machine down and get out of that cab and go talk to that homeowner, because that's the most important. We don't minister, we've said it many times, we don't minister to a house, we minister to people. And you don't have to say anything, but just be a listening ear and let them offload that to you. And it doesn't matter your age; your skill level is not what God is looking for. He's looking for your availability to allow Him to use you.
You may not have home repair skills, but we all have the testimony. If you know the power of the gospel and the power of our testimony, that is the only qualification that is needed to respond to these disasters. God will do the rest as long as you allow Him to work through you. And we've said it many times on this podcast before, but God does not need our ability, just our availability. When we selflessly serve the power of the Lord, He will work in and through us. I love 1 Peter 4:10 through 11 that says, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. Do not be slothful in zeal, be fervent in spirit, and serve the Lord. And so I challenge you, and I'm challenging myself, to serve the Lord and to start each day asking God what He wants you to do today. Maybe something simple like texting a friend that you're thinking and praying for them, sending a verse that you read, writing a note, or bringing someone a meal. It could be a conversation with a stranger at the grocery store. But it also might be responding to a disaster. I encourage you to go to our website, SamaritansPurse.org/explore, and you can see where we're serving all over the world. We need volunteers through our U.S. disaster relief. Consider bringing your teenager, maybe your grandson, and serving with them, or maybe your church or small group. I encourage you. It is the best way to bond with someone. My husband recently brought our daughter, and I know it was really good for both of them to work side by side, helping and loving and serving. Thank you so much for listening today. And again, I really challenge you to consider serving with us. It is truly so much fun. I hope you have a great week. God bless you.